IT sourcing and headhunting, which is what we are going to talk about. So I'll share my screen and I'll show you a few slides with examples of Boolean searches so that you guys can do a little better searches on LinkedIn or on GitHub. I'll also go through a few examples of what do candidates usually desire, because that's what usually matters most, right? If you don't get them interested in your opportunities, then it doesn't really matter what kind of a cool strategy you use to source them, right? So let me just pull the window and share the screen. Meanwhile, guys, you can also write questions in chat, and we will answer them right after the presentation. Thanks, Alex. Thanks. I'm glad you like some of the books over there. Awesome. So let's kick it off with the first one. Hope you guys can see it. Can you see it? All good? Cool. So first things first, I would just like to mention that despite the perception that there are not enough people on the market, I would like to shift the perception to actually remind you that there is more people on the market than ever before when it comes to IT candidates, because the seniors in IT haven't retired just yet. And at the same time, more juniors enter the job market than ever before, thanks to all these boot camps and training courses and Udacity and whatnot. So there is an interesting prediction that by 2030, there will be 45 million developers out there. And now there are around 25, 26 million. So that's quite interesting, right? So there are people in the market. Obviously, the demand increases as well, but the people are there. So we will talk about how to attract them. Okay, we need to also consider the career transitions, which are very important now in the IT job market, because people always desire something. You know, there is this saying that the grass is greener always on the other side of the fence, right? So just to highlight a few of my recent candidates who were interviewed and hired by our clients. For example, Ekaterina, she just wanted to relocate from Russia. That was even before the war started. She just wanted to relocate because she wasn't satisfied with the political situation. And since the last, 2 months, 3 months, we have even more candidates, many more candidates who want to relocate out of Russia. So that's what they wake up with in the morning. They just want to relocate and they look for opportunities. So once we present them opportunities through these lenses, they are much more receptive. I'll show you in a minute how. Or Victoria, for example, she worked for a local bank and she wanted to shift from that local bank to working remotely for a company that was either in Dubai or in Europe, because she was looking for something cooler, something more fancy. She didn't want to relocate, something cooler locally, but remotely, but still in the same city she lived in. Or Harsh, for example, he was a CTO in a great company. He was leading hundreds of team members, and he felt like he's not really challenged anymore. So he wanted to shift to a smaller company, say 200 people in total, probably 50 people in the IT team, but somewhere where he could contribute and steer the wheel a bit further. So that's what he was constantly thinking about, like how can he go from the huge company to some smaller company. Or Jacob, for example, he was working for a year or 1.5 years, and he was looking for a new challenge, something that would get him excited. Or Joe was really interesting. His wife got pregnant, and he wanted to shift from the startup world to working for some more stable company in a corporate kind of environment. So it's really interesting. Once we understand what do people desire, it is so much easier to present them our job opportunities. So for example, you can start thinking and presenting these opportunities through some of the phrases, or you can just speak to their desires. For example, if you have a candidate who is an employee and you assume, or you know from the past, that he wants to become a freelancer and get self-employed, then you can present him the opportunity, such as like, hey, last time you mentioned you wanted to shift to being a freelancer, and now I have a great opportunity where you can work remotely as a freelancer. We can help you set up your self-employment setup locally. And that's something that resonates very well with some candidates. That just happened 2 weeks ago with one candidate from Romania, where he shifted from being an employee to self-employed. But also sometimes after people are self-employed for 3, 4, 5 years, they want to shift and become employed again. That's really crazy, isn't it? Because, for example, their wives get pregnant. So we can again rephrase it slightly like, hey, are you sick and tired of having this insecure job? Why don't you join our company? It is much more stable and you can enjoy some of the perks and benefits. Or people who work for agencies for 2-3 years, they at some point get frustrated with the projects changing frequently, and they are much more receptive to, for example, product-centric companies. So that's also how we pitch some of the opportunities to people who are working for software development houses, or people who, for example, work for travel companies, travel tech companies. Sometimes they feel insecure and they want to transition to some other industry. So once we understand what do people think about and what do they desire next, it is just so much easier to present the opportunity in a compelling way, because there are so many Java developer positions or front-end React developer positions out there, and they don't really stand out. So our job now, in this, these days, is to figure out how to make these jobs stand out and get people excited about the opportunities. So then, and I'll not go through all these, I just highlighted it here just in case some of you guys want to take a screenshot and use some of these phrases. But these are the phrases we use in marketing to candidates. Like, would you like to increase your net income by working as a freelancer? We have a great opportunity for you. Or would you like to start working for a company based in San Francisco? We have a great opportunity for you. Like, this is something, for example, people in Eastern Europe are very well receptive to. They feel it's very like they just want to work for companies in San Francisco, for example, remotely. That's something that they respond quite well to. So you can take a screenshot if you'd like. I'll not go through all of them because we want to spend more time on some of the sourcing strategies with LinkedIn or GitHub. Or for example, the last one, do you have to go to the office too often, work fully remote like your friends already, right? Like, these are some of the phrases that people are quite receptive to. So the golden rule that we have articulated while recruiting IT professionals in different countries internationally is that if you cannot fill a vacancy in IT, it is because your opportunity is not good enough or you are not selling it well enough on the market. Okay, so if you cannot fill the vacancy, it's either not a good enough opportunity, meaning something with the opportunity is not right. It's probably the salary, or it could be just too much on-site work when people don't want to work on-site anymore, or you are just not selling it well enough. So if you think that the market, the salary is above or at least on the market rate, if you feel that you already offer remote work, if you feel that you already use the latest and greatest technologies, then it's most likely just that you are not selling it well enough. With those examples just a while ago, use some of the phrases, make candidates excited. So speak to their desires, not just pure technologies, because there are so many companies out there where front-end React developers can work for. So rather focus on something special, something unique about your opportunity. So ask yourself these two questions. First, are people on the market with the skills you need? Just as an example, we had one client who was looking for a senior data scientist in one of the cities in the Czech Republic. And there were just very few data scientists, like really like 4 people probably who met the requirements, and none of them wanted to change the job at that time. So, if there are people on the market that's great. If they are not, then you need to change something, right? And second, do you offer a similar compensation package as your ideal candidates already have today? Again, we had, for example, one client that was offering like 30% below what the market was asking for, and they were surprised they cannot really get anyone to join the company. And I'm like, guys, but look, like you are offering 3,500 to a senior Python developer. Like there is no senior sane Python developer who would work for this amount of money. But they're like, well, but that's our ceiling. And I'm like, well, so then you need to change something, right? You can sell it as much as you want, but so anyway, so ask yourself these two questions. And if you answered yes to both questions above, and you are still not filling your vacancies, then either the opportunity is not good enough or you are not selling it well enough. Okay, so if there are people on the market, if there are data scientists in New York, which they are, right? And if you offer a decent package, then you are just not selling it well enough. So it comes down to your ability to get people excited about the opportunity at hand. And if you answered no to the first question, then you should rather expand the market. So start looking for people remotely. And if you answered no to the second question, then you should rather rethink your compensation plan. What I've noticed while working with developers, especially in Europe, is that they are not as interested in the employee stock option plan, and rather they value the cash in hand. So that's quite a change compared to the candidates from the United States. And I would suggest you guys also discover your gaps. So what do I mean by that? So if you don't get enough candidates, then the potential problems could be either very few people see the offer itself, which means you are not promoting the opportunity enough, or a lot of people see it, but they don't apply. Okay, so the opportunity itself is not interesting. So you can really break down the whole funnel, the whole hiring or recruitment funnel to just a few yes or no's. Essentially, once you understand the data behind it, behind how many people apply and at what stage of the funnel they drop. So if not enough people see it, then you need to do more marketing towards candidate. And if they see it, but they don't apply, then the opportunity itself is not interesting. It's not compelling enough. The market desires probably more cash in hand or, I don't know, some other compensation. At the same time, if you get a substantial amount of candidates, but you don't hire any of them, then you can have two problems as well. So you can either have inefficient or long interview process, which I also see with some of our clients. We submit them great candidates. We do lots of search. We headhunt candidates. We introduce them to the best of the best, creme de la creme IT candidates. And then it takes them 6 weeks to interview candidates. And I'm like, well, guys, but it doesn't work this way anymore. And it's just dragging forever. So it's hard. If you work in a larger company, in a corporation, then it's hard. I know there are some processes and whatnot, but also some of our clients are trying to reinvent the whole hiring process internally just to make sure that they can give an offer within 7 days to a candidate. And second, a lot of people apply, but there are no great candidates. So it just means there is mismatch between the budget and the expectations, which also happens with some hiring managers. I hope it's not your case, but sometimes hiring managers have this idea about the ideal candidate, say a data scientist who used Python with all these libraries and worked with huge data sets, etc., etc. And then the budget is $60,000. So, because the budget is pushed by the CFO, but the hiring manager expects someone very senior. And that sucks, of course, because the hiring manager hasn't reset the expectations. Like if the budget is 60,000, then the expectations about candidates has to be readjusted. So I would like to highlight this because it's sometimes hard to realize it while you are in the flow. You are probably interviewing some candidates here and there, you reject them, and you haven't thought what's going on, like why you may not get the results you desire. So this could be the issues. You either have inefficient process, or you have mismatch between your budget and expectations. So then after you realign, then prepare your pitch. Prepare your pitch because otherwise there are lots of opportunities for backend developers, front-end engineers, data engineers, Python developers, etc. So those are relatively similar, but what makes it stand out is your team or your product or your specific opportunity, your company, your culture. So you need to prepare your pitch. And then the question is, how do you pitch the vacancy, right? So is there something interesting about the product? Is it high tech? Is there something interesting about the project if this is some software development agency? Is it, for example, a project built from scratch that's quite appealing to a lot of people out there, especially senior ones? Or is there something interesting about the company? For example, the company has just fundraised and is expanding heavily. Or are there any interesting team members? Maybe the CTO, maybe there are some open source contributors. So feel free to take a screenshot of this mind map. We use it when we onboard new clients, and we try to identify how to pitch their vacancies so that more candidates feel that this is the dream job for them. Okay, and then rewrite your job descriptions, because you can start approaching people and send them your JD, but if that sucks, then you will not be very successful anyway. So change the title to be very straightforward. Make sure that you don't send to candidates something that is very fluffy or something like developer evangelist, which people don't really understand. They may not really know who the developer evangelist is. Who are you looking for? So just make it very straightforward. For example, backend Python engineer. Make sure that you have good hook. It's like marketing, right? Like these days, recruitment is about marketing and sales. So make sure you have a good hook. Make sure that you can pitch your company with just a few sentences. Avoid the industry jargon. This is really hard, by the way. This takes probably 15 minutes to figure out with a team. They often cannot introduce their company in a simple way. So that's quite crazy, isn't it? So make sure that you go through this exercise yourself so that you can actually pitch your company, and add pre-screening questions. Yes, someone is just mentioning Josie. Yes, definitely. That's such a cool thing, right? Pre-screening questions on the JD. It's such a help on the job description because it helps candidates identify if they are a good fit or not. It also helps recruiters to quickly spot who is a fit or not. And I like to distill the super long list of requirements to just 3 must-have skills. It's often just the programming language. It could be, for example, experience with microservices and fluent English. And the rest usually is just fluff. Now I'm mostly talking about backend engineers, for example. Okay, and when you have this, then you may also want to go further and prepare some compelling landing pages where you will direct the candidates to. I'll just show you a few examples. This was for one client. So instead of sending the long job description, we show them like, hey, are you a backend PHP developer? Watch this video below with a CTO. Or another example, are you a PHP Fullstack developer? Start coding Symfony and Angular. Click here to get more info. And this way we can capture their contact details at least. And that's what you can also do. Or open positions in Bratislava. These pages just screenshotted next to each other in different stages of the. Are you interested in data jobs? Yes, especially in data engineering. Can you use Python? Yes, of course, or no. So this way we can pre-qualify candidates really quick. Or the Dream Job Show, which I organized, that's a fun way to pitch those opportunities. So you can, if you are a CTO or you are a team lead, tech lead, then you can also just get the video and hit record, talk about the opportunity, talk about why is it cool, what do you expect, but don't focus on the requirements, but rather what kind of challenges do you expect the developer or IT professional to solve going forward. So yeah, there's one video. I'll share the slides if you'd like to watch, for example, this video. Like the thumbnail is terrible now when I look at it, but you will be able to watch how do I pitch the opportunity. This is some startup from San Francisco. So instead of just enumerating the requirements, which is super boring, I talk about what an awesome team they are, open source contributors, and they can work remotely from Romania or wherever. So that's quite a cool way. Okay, and then once you have all these in place, then you can start using LinkedIn to source candidates because you have something to show them. So you have three options. First, you can use the LinkedIn free version. That's, good for those of you who are on a low budget and you just want to do some free search. I just want to highlight that there is this option, all filters, and I would suggest you guys use the title right here instead of just the keyword. Because if you type front-end developer, then LinkedIn will search across all profiles and their about sections and whatnot. So the keyword front-end developer can appear anywhere, even in previous positions. So it's not very efficient. If you put to the title, then it is a bit better. You will get more targeted audience. I'll show you some Boolean operators later. The second option is LinkedIn Recruiter Lite. This is much better. It costs about 100 euros, 120, $150 probably, based on where you are. And this is the Lite version, by the way. The advantage is that you can have advanced filters. For example, you can have the job title, Java architect, like super simple, not even a Boolean search, but you can use it. I'll show you some examples. But what is really cool, you can see it here with the second arrow, you can include only those people who have the title currently. So not in the past, not a year ago, not 5 years ago, not 10 years ago, but right now in the present like tense or status. Okay, currently. You can also use some Boolean operators in keywords. You can look for people with certain experience, so 6 to 30 if you are looking for some seniors. So this is much better. The third option, which some people use, is the LinkedIn LinkedIn Sales Navigator. The Sales Navigator is also a good way. It's a bit cheaper than LinkedIn Recruiter Lite. Lee just mentioned it's £200 per month. When you pay monthly, well, that's quite a lot, isn't it? So LinkedIn Sales Navigator is the second option, which some people use, even agencies. I consult for some staffing agencies and they use it as well, just because it is cheaper and it offers similar functionality. You can get more emails through LinkedIn Sales Navigator. So it is worth, you have pretty much similar filters. So the advantage of LinkedIn Recruiter Lite is the projects. So you can attach some candidates to projects. In LinkedIn Sales Navigator, you can attach them to some accounts or save them as leads. So it's slightly different. But anyway, it really depends on how far do you want to go. In agencies, they usually have LinkedIn Recruiter Lite. And I'll show you a few Boolean operators. Usually when we conduct search, we go, of course, further. We don't just use front-end developer. We are just scratching surface with such a filter. But you can, for example, consider different alternatives. For example, test or QA or quality assurance and engineer or specialist or tester, but not lead, not manager. Okay, so this you put to the title. So essentially here, the current title. So with this, you will get combinations such as test engineer, QA or QA specialist, quality assurance specialist. So just with one Boolean search, you are able to get much more targeted result. Okay, then to keywords, which is the other, where was it here? Keywords here in the middle, you can put something as advanced as not manual and in brackets Russian or Russiski or Russian or whatever, right? Ukrainian. So we were looking for one client, people who are in Poland, but they speak Russian. So yeah, like different combinations. And then we can split the group, which would be about 500 people, we can split them by seniority to smaller chunks. For example, 50 people who have 3 to 4 years of experience, 4 to 7 people who have 200, 7 to 10 people who have etc., etc. So a group of 1,000 candidates, we can segment to smaller pieces. So this is just one of many examples. Fullstack PHP Engineer, you can again take a screenshot just as an inspiration. You can see we were looking for the PHP engineer. So obviously the PHP in the title is the most efficient way. And then you have PHP and developer or programmer or engineer or desarrolladora or desarrollador. I don't know, like all these translations, because especially outside of the United States, people still use their local language. For example, in Spain, if you just go to Google Translate and you translate the word developer, you would find you would find out desarrollador, because I cannot even pronounce it, but they have the masculine and feminine words, right? So you consider both with Boolean. And that's super exciting, right? Like you can get the search to the next level with approaches such as this. You can see also some additional skills that could be applied to this search. So very cool. One of many ways. Front-end React engineer. Again, you can have different searches. You can start with something very broad, like front-end developer, current or past in Austria, but you would have 900 people, which is way too many to go through. And then you can have, for example, in the title, React or React.js in Austria, and suddenly you have 14 people. It's probably too few. So the one highlighted is probably one of the better ones, like front-end or front-end or front-end, because sometimes people have front-end together and sometimes with a space. Not full stack, because yeah, we were not looking for full stack developers. And in skills, they should have React, React.js, but not React Native, because we were not looking for mobile developers. Okay, and these 67 people, they were great. Or these 22 people, for example, developer or engineer, not lead, not manager, but in skills, React and React Native. You see, so there are so many different options. You can put the keyword front-end or front-end or front-end with dash or space. So this is just one of many examples. And second thing I would like to highlight is that also GitHub can be used to source candidates, especially for some more advanced developers. For example, we were looking for an engineer who focuses on some video encoding, right? So the first step is to understand what does it really mean, video encoding. It means that that person would use some video encoding codecs, right? So what are the codecs? What do people use? We identified some keywords, for example, FFmpeg or WebRTC or HCL. And then on GitHub, we were looking for people who had worked or contributed, or not even to contributed to FFmpeg. There is not that many people, but people who used in their repositories FFmpeg, because FFmpeg is the codec for video and audio encoding. So people who use FFmpeg in their projects are very likely to have projects that actually do some video encoding. So this is a cool way. And then we just create some spreadsheet and we approach these people, and we had really great candidates coming out of this list. So GitHub can also be used, especially to find backend engineers, people who use some of these more advanced libraries or tools. But even, I mean, front-end developers, you can go after React or Angular developers out there, just based on what kind of libraries do they use. For front-end developers, I would say is better. But for something as advanced as this, GitHub worked better. So yeah, and I showed you some mind maps. So if you'd like to see, and there is about 40 mind maps with lots of different Boolean operators, Boolean searches. So if you would like to get like all of them, then just go to IT Recruiter mind maps, and you can get the whole list. That could help you, because in those mind maps, I have some of these Boolean searches, so you know how to just apply them next time you look for full stack engineers or backend developers, front-end developers, QA engineers. So all these keywords are included in those mind maps. So that could also help you. Okay, so essentially 2 ways on a high level, LinkedIn and GitHub. You can use them, but before you start approaching people, don't forget to reset your mindset. Make sure that you think it through properly before you start approaching people. Make sure you you think about the pitch itself. Once you approach people, you pitch the vacancy properly. Okay, so with that, I guess we wrapped it up. And if you guys have any questions, then I'm ready to tackle them.
I think we're probably just a little bit over time at the moment, I'm afraid, Michal. But all the questions that we have, as I said in the chat, we're logging them all, and we're going to put them up in Slack. So there will be an opportunity to get those answered.
Awesome.
But thank you very much, Michal. That was fantastic, very insightful, very detailed.
Cool.